The best in the summer, and now, the main news on Radio Singalo, brought to you by Moose Milling and Sabia Catholic University.
Radio Chingalo, restoring everything in Christ with love and truth. Good afternoon. With the main news, I'm Patrick Mupeta. The headlines: Listen to the voice of God. Adequate funding required in public schools. Prison leopards reclaim top position. The details. A Catholic priest in Kitwe is asking Christians to take time to listen to the voice of God. Our Lady of Africa parish priest, Benedictine Andre, also called on the faithful to enhance their relationship with God and work towards taking people to the Lord. Speaking in his homily during Mass, also attended by Kwacha Member of Parliament, Joseph Malanji, Father Ngandwe added that people should respond to the core of God's mission of peace, justice, and unity.
Nowadays, there are a lot of voices that are going around, especially now, when we have a lot of anxieties and fears. We don't know what tomorrow will become. But the thing is, how are we interpreting these voices we are listening to? And we're supposed to listen to the voice of God. But no, there are plenty of voices that are contaminating our minds. And you know what you listen to, sometimes that's what you become. If you bombard your mind with hatred, if you bombard your mind with discrimination, you're listening to such kind of voices, then you can affect them.
And Mr. Malanji, who is also Foreign Affairs Minister, said he appreciates the efforts of the Catholic Church in supplementing government efforts in various ways. Mr. Malanji further called on people to be united amid COVID-19. The lawmaker also made a donation, the lawmaker also made a donation of a 30-seater Rosa minibus to the parish, a personal Benz for the parish priest, 40,000 kwacha to the women for village banking, and 30,000 kwacha to the choir who sang during Mass.
There's a lot of developmental programs that you've given to the community. In supplementing government efforts, it is from that premise that where available, resources being available, I'll always make sure I'm equal to the task. I know we are going through a trying moment, but Zambia cannot insulate itself.
And Our Lady of Africa parish priest, Father Benedictine Ngandwe, who thanked Mr. Malanji for the gesture, also gave him a cross as the church observes the Year of Unity.
Given your generosity to the community and the people you have helped, God knows what you have done. And in His own kindness, you continue what you do. I'm not saying that today, I'm going to give you a cross, this cross. You take it or you hang it wherever you are. Even when you go to different parts of the world, just hang it where you are lodging in your hotel room and ask Jesus, because you are going to conquer even your enemies. You are going to.
Meanwhile, the Kwacha lawmaker Joseph Malanji has also congregated with Christians at United Church of Zambia UCZ Kwacha East congregation. During the service, Mr. Malanji took time to sensitize people on the dangers of COVID-19. The lawmaker also donated 100,000 kwacha to the 5 choirs at the congregation, 20,000 kwacha to the Women Christian Fellowship, 150 towards the construction of the church, with 400 blankets for the vulnerable at the congregation. He also donated a Rosa minibus to the UCZ Kwacha East congregation.
That's why we always be you. We come to congregate with you people because we believe in your doctrine. Check out what Satan is this. It's because we know you obey all about our flesh and you know that we are still in an era where we still have.
And UCZ Kwacha East Congregation Secretary Micham Denda thanked Mr. Malanji for the support to the church, saying the donation of the bus would reduce the transport costs incurred at the congregation.
Thank you for things that we've seen that we'll be doing. We know that you've created the Malanji Initiative, which will sponsor or give scholarship to the people that you see. Some will also think that you really helped us in the community by providing the transport and practical things, even in the midst of our challenges. And some of that to thank you, because particularly myself, I'll be a big.
Moving on, stakeholders have continued to support the extended reopening of schools by 2 weeks. President Edgar Lungu has extended the reopening of schools from 18th January to 1st February 2021 to allow the learning institutions to adequately prepare in view of COVID-19. In a statement, Patriotic Front Copperbelt chairperson Nathan Chanda reiterated that the move would give schools an opportunity to ensure that they are clean and safe for teachers and learners. In another development, Mr. Chanda has described the late Monze Diocese Bishop Moses Hamongole as a man who stood for justice for all. Mr. Chanda has since extended his condolences to the church and the family of Bishop Hamongole, who was put to rest yesterday. Meanwhile, the ruling Patriotic Front PF on the Copperbelt has expressed confidence of winning the forthcoming Miputu Ward by-election slated for 4th February 2021. The by-election was necessitated by the resignation of Masaiti's UPND Ward Councillor Mabeti Osini. PF Copperbelt Chairman Nathan Chanda is now calling on the electorates to vote for the party's candidate Bonwell Ntambo. Mr. Chanda was speaking after the PF candidate Bonwell Ntambo successfully filed in his nominations. And Masaiti constituency member of parliament Michael Katambo said his constituency has had a share of national development. Meanwhile, PF Miputu Ward by-election candidate Bonwell Ntambo pledged to foster development in the area once voted into office. But the United Party for National Development, UPND, alleged that government has failed to take the much-needed development to Masaiti. Joseph Chilambwe, a member in the office of the UPND president, Hagainde Hichilema, is now calling on the electorates to vote for the UPND candidate. Mr. Chilambwe spoke on a UPND program on Radio Chengelo yesterday. Now, a teacher union on the Copperbelt says adequate funding to schools is needed for school administrators to purchase the required materials aimed at protecting learners from contracting COVID-19. In his announcement, President Edgar Lungu directed that all schools should be ready for reopening by 1st February 2021 after putting in place all COVID-19 health guidelines. Zambia National Union of Teachers Zanut Copperbelt Provincial Chairperson David Siamutwa said the Ministry of Education should abide by the presidential directive and ensure that the items are procured in schools. Mr. Siamutwa has further appealed to parents with school-going children to also get involved and work together with school authorities in the fight against coronavirus.
Everyone should take it seriously and should know that it is a real calamity that has befallen us. Therefore, the present intervention is okay. And I just want to urge the Ministry of Education to make sure that they abide by what the President has said. Let there be funding to the schools so that they are able to procure the cleaning
Women of Bwana Mkubwa constituency in Ndola have underscored the importance of empowerment initiatives. They said that women empowerment is the surest way of preventing them from being beggars. The women spoke to Radio Changalo News after women groups received village chickens from a non-government organization called Leaving No One Behind Foundation. The 200 women also received chicken feed and thanked the organization director Warren Chisha Mwambazi.
Mayo sekeleleni pamphiti chayisa twalasambirisa nomba vana vesu pakuti vamoneko vana mayo vonsena vachitata amagana bowanzi vavabonako vava Mwambazi tule vatotela kuli akakabungwe ka Leaving No One Behind twatotela pafintu fyose mwapekanya pabusiku bwalero pantu tabalefu atule lomba tabalefu atule pitana bushenga tule lomba tukachiteshi tapali bushenga twatambali kama bokwefi fishi tukachita tukatema tukanaya tukavula ubwato tukachita sheni nga tulive straight tapali so tukileta twalafe mama
And Mr. Mwambazi pledged to continue empowering people in Bwana Mkubwa constituency.
Therefore, by 2024, 2025, Bwana Mkubwa ila produce some exciting sana no clash kwa Shoprite wa Pick and Pay ni shinomba hiyo development na tuala state ya pale so back to back abasungu balanga tule.
Meanwhile, Ndola-based Catholic priest Father Augustine Mwewa, who graced the event, implored women to be proactive. Let's see what we have in sports. Prison Leopards have reclaimed the top position of the MTN FAS Super Division after beating Forest Rangers by 2-0 in a Week 13 match played in Kabwe yesterday. Goals from Francis Zulu and Kobech Peter in the first and 19th minute were enough for the team to seal victory and move to 23rd points on the log. And speaking shortly after the match, Prison Leopards coach Mwenya Chipepo congratulated these players for putting up an impressive performance.
Also,
losing coach Tenant Chilumba says his team conceded what he described as silly goals.
Second half, because two silly goals, so to relax concentration in the first half, or second half again, concentration. So we are creating chances. So we are on top of the game today. So a lot of chances was Messi. Only constitutes.
This news broadcast comes to you in the community service of Radio Changalo with compliments of Mosmele and the Zambia Catholic University. And now the international news as monitored from the BBC. Uganda's main opposition presidential candidate, Bobi Wine, says his life is being threatened following Thursday's election, which saw Yoweri Museveni win a 60th elected term. The singer turned politician told the BBC that he rejected the results with the contempt they deserve. He alleged that there had been a lot of irregularities, but Mr. Museveni called it Uganda's fairest ever vote. Mr. Wine said campaigning had been marred by violence in which dozens of people died. And just ahead of voting day, the government shut down the internet, a move condemned by election monitors. And finally, on our main news, all 50 US states and the District of Columbia, DC, are on alert of possible violent protests this weekend ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on Wednesday. According to BBC, National Guard troops have been sent in mass to Washington, D.C. to deter any repeat of last week's deadly riots. The FBI has warned of possible armed marches by pro-Trump supporters at all 50 state capitals. Meanwhile, the Biden team has set out plans to reverse key Trump's policies. In the hours after Mr. Biden set foot in the White House, he will embark on a blitz of executive actions designed to signal a clean break from his predecessor's administration, according to a memo seen by the US media. We now end Radio Chingalo News by taking a look at our headlines. Listen to the voice of God. Adequate funding required in public schools. Prison lepers reclaim top position. For these and more stories, you can visit our Facebook page. Log on to Facebook and like the Radio Chingalo page and link to radiochingalo.radio12345.com. You can also listen to the rebroadcast of the news on our YouTube channel. Also listen to us on Radio Garden. Remember to play your part in the fight against coronavirus pandemic by adhering to the safety guidelines as outlined by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Wear a mask when in public. Avoid large groups and maintain social distance. Avoid unnecessary movements. Wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. This has been Patrick Umpeta with the main news on Radio Chingalo. Thank you very much for your time. Good afternoon.